because it left the black milieu or the context that it was in, the original state that it was in, that was black. But once it left black world and entered into the greater world, it's no longer black music per se, because you have other cultures who are, or other ethnicities and other social classes, right, who are contributing, if you want to say, okay, and to making this product what it is. Okay, so I'm saying in conclusion, I'll move to a conclusion now. So it's to say that, so in this sense, this whole thing about hip hop being an invention or creation strictly by foundational Black Americans or Black Americans and Puerto Ricans. Okay, you know what? Let's say for me, like I say, I have no emotional investment in this. Like, well, there is the emotional investment is because I'm passionate in general about history. I'm passionate about music and art, right? But other than that, there's no personal in terms of like identity, like politics. I don't care for that, right? So what I'm passionate about in this discussion is the fact is to say like, okay, look, I'm willing to concede that initially the hip hop movement, it was predominantly, for me not to say exclusively, right? Because I don't think it was exclusively. I wasn't there, but I'm saying from the perspective of a historian with the data that I'm aware of. Okay, I obviously I don't have all the information, but I'm saying thus far it's like, well, it wasn't just blacks, but predominantly blacks. So in this sense, I'm willing to concede that, okay, yes, it was the urban black youths in New York City who, if you want to say, found is like, I don't think you can say anybody found culture, or no one individual or one segment of greater societies can make that claim. Nowhere in the world, right? Because every culture, there's usually no, like, again, look, in mythology, okay? And telling a story of a people, usually, for example, look, when they tell you the story about how Rome became a city and became a people, they'll tell you about Romulus and Remus, for example, right? But in actuality, this is mythology, which means this is the story. By mythology, I don't mean that it's false. I mean that it's a made-up story to tell the greater history of the development of these people. But in fact, it wasn't two people who started or who founded that culture or that group. It's a plethora, right, of individuals and events, right, put together, and usually it's unconsciously. It's not that nobody really plans to develop culture. It just happens. Well, what do you mean it just happens? Yes, because culture, remember, it's human expression. So as long as there are humans who are alive, who can speak, who can think, they're going to express, right? Or by think, what I mean by think is because, for example, we know today that there are people who suffer with cognitive problems, right? So they can't express themselves from, and what I would categorize as normative behavior. You know what I mean? Like, this is another discussion, but take my word for it, okay? Like, for example, myself, right? I have a child who suffered from, pretty severe autism. And I have other kids. Among all my, she doesn't speak like the other children, right? She doesn't, it's very limited. Her vocabulary is very limited. So in this sense, this is what I mean by, well, if you compare her to the rest of my children, they express themselves what deems to be the norm for us as that, the way humans express themselves. My other child who suffers from this severe autism doesn't. So this is in the sense where I'm saying, like, so culture is never one person or little groups of people who develop or create culture. Culture is life, right? It's human existence is culture. So the forms of expressions of culture are, for example, yes, it can be in music and literature, etc., right? Different ways that humans express themselves would be expressions of culture, but that means it takes individuals to do these expressions, but these individuals collectively, right? They're the one that's what you would say are the founders. If they ever were founders of culture, that these are the founders of the culture. So what do I mean by that? So to flesh it out, that's why I said you have American culture as a nation, right? That nation, a group of people, they had ideas. They put these ideas down in a constitution. So that's where you talk about founding fathers. The founding fathers, right? They're the people who help, if you want to say, put together the idea of America. But they didn't make America. The group of people, right, who consisted, well, before America became America, whoever, like the group of people who inhabited those colonies, okay, for lack of a better term, who agreed, okay, to make this nation together. Collectively, they are the makers or the founders of the nation and therefore American culture. And I'll stop there because like I said, I could go further. I'd even talk about how Drake and Kendrick fit into this, right? But I'll say something about it quick because I think it's important, especially in contrast to something that I heard the homie Glasses Malone, you know what I'm saying? He's been pretty vocal about, if you want to say, this conflict, and this is somebody who I really appreciate. Matter of fact, he and I, we've collaborated on a few joints. That's going to be on my next album, God willing. Shameless plug. So salute, shout out Glasses. So this is no, how do you say this? This is nothing negative. It's just me questioning, if you want to say, and digging into certain comments that I heard Glasses made, for example, right? So Glasses, for example, about this Kendrick Lamar and Drake, if you want to say issue or conflict, there was a lot that he did where he was questioning. It was Drake actually. He was questioning, he's like, well, it seems to him that he felt that people like Drake, they're culturally entitled, and I don't have time to start breaking down what he meant by that. But generally, look, what he was saying is like, well, from his standpoint, Drake is not really hip hop because from Glasses Malone's standpoint, hip hop is street culture. Hip hop is street, how do I say it? Bread, for me not to keep, beating this word, this founding thing. But anyway, from Glasses' standpoint, and it says, we could use it. Hip hop is not only street oriented, but street created, right? It's a street production. And you know what? I would agree from a standpoint. What I would like, so if I were to engage directly, with Glasses, a question that I have for him is that, well, he has to define what he means by street. Because look, if by street he means, for example, he's from California, right? And Glasses, it's well known. Glasses is a Crip. So Glasses is he's a very he carries the Crip flag, high, and he not just the Crip flag, California hip hop street culture. But if I'm correct, if Glasses sees this episode and he wishes to engage me, let's do it, bro. I'm definitely open to have this discussion with you. So from what I'm gathering, when you say street culture, he probably talking about California street culture, gang banging, right? Because there's a lot of things that he said that, that leads me to this conclusion. So from that standpoint, I would say, well, yeah, Glasses is right. Clearly, Drake is not street culture. Drake was never street culture to me, right? Like living in Canada, I've been living in Canada for a minute, and I was aware when Drake first started. No disrespect to him, I don't have anything personal against him, but I never really felt him because similar to Glass, I felt like, well, he was to me authentic hip hop, right? But that's another discussion. Like I said, let me keep going at what Glasses says so I could conclude. Okay, so if Glasses means, like I say, like what he meant by, well, Drake is culturally entitled because almost for him, Drake seems to be perpetrating street culture. And by street culture, what I think when I hear Glasses express himself on this topic, he seems to be referencing street culture with California, you know what I'm saying, gang banging hip hop culture. And that's since I said, yeah, well, clearly, Glasses like Drake is not. He's not from Cali. He never really, at least in the beginning, doesn't claim a set, nothing like that. True, I'll agree with you again, Glasses, that lately, in the last couple of years or so, or should I say, the last few projects, right? He has the tone of his music seems to have changed. Yes, he's taken more of a aggressive perspective and using what I would call. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm afraid of this term street because see, that's what I'm questioning, Glasses. I'm like, so if you mean by street culture, California gangbanging culture with a hip hop twist to it, perfect. But if by street culture you mean Black American culture, that's another discussion. There'll be that to be had, right? I would say that to a certain extent, like I said, I don't really jack Drake music, right? I can't deny that some of them they bump, right? But it's not something that I relate to. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, I digress. I'll say like, look, so generally Drake has been. Remember when I give the story about how so-called Black culture is commodified by the music industry. Drake is a product of the music industry. He always been from jump. So he's like I said, no disrespect to him. I don't I'm gonna say it the way that I think is correct or appropriate to say, to define or describe what I think Drake is as a product. Drake is processed food. So maybe that's what the dude Yasin Bey, Mos Def, meant when he was talking about, elevator type of, it sounded funny and it sounded like he was being demeaning, but if what I think he means is what he means, because I was like, Drake is like, it's like processed food, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like well-made processed food, right? It's a product that the music industry took the ingredients, like the Drake, the person, developed a character, in the beginning probably got the right, composers and producers, the right writers, and they created together this product to give to the public. And it happened to somehow, they made it work. People started to latch on to it, you know what I'm saying? Catch on to it, consume it proficiently, right? And to the point where he got to be the top, right? He's been on top for a good, a decade now? So in that sense, I'll say like, well, just like I said, look, soul music, yes, I will agree that it was Black music. It was Black music until corporate America got involved. From the time corporate America gets involved, the term Black music now just becomes a label. It's no longer essentially Black music, or philosophically speaking, I don't mean to get too deep. It's no longer ontologically, as a thing itself, it's no longer Black, because the people who are taking the ingredient of the music, or by virtue of what I'm talking about right now, Drake, the people who took Drake, they mold him into something Black. But so in that sense, yes, he's Black music. He's doing hip hop, street music. But again, if by street Glasses, if you meant that Drake is not, he don't do gangbanging music, but I think that's self-evident. He doesn't, even though, yes, like I'll agree with you too. Lately, his tone has been very aggressive, and the issue is not the aggression either. It's just the type of aggressivity the tone that he's taken is, yes, it's akin to gangbanging, whether it's California or anywhere across America, right? And I'll even go further to say globally, right? Because like I told you, man, like I live in Canada now, and I know people have this perception of Canada. What people think Canada is not. Where I live in Canada, for example, is a different state. They call them provinces. I don't live in the state that Drake lives in. I live in a state called Quebec, in the city Montreal. Dude, it's a whole nother, like the street culture here has been bananas and vibrant, and I'm not trying to promote it either. I'll just say that's the reality, right? It's a whole nother thing. Like, and having come from the United States, being from the streets of Miami, believe you me, I know, bro. You know what I mean? So I'll stop there, man. Like I said, I would like to have this, I know I ain't really elaborated to it, and I hope that there's something out of, it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of thoughts, right, that I threw out there. Okay, so it might again not seem that it's coherent, right? But I hope it makes sense. Even by coherent, I mean because I'm going here and there, everywhere it seems, right? But if you pay attention, you'll see. Look, the main thing that I was trying to convey is that when we say, first of all, this notion of like who created hip hop, I think it's not the proper way to look at it because, like I said in conclusion, no one individual or no one specific group in a greater country can make the claim of creating a culture. So, like I say, it gets more complex, especially when you start talking about countries like America. And I'll stop, like I say, because there's so much things to be said. Countries like America, right? Remember, America, in spite of its flaws, okay, historically, the idea of America is a melting pot. It's supposed to be like different groups of ethnicities who come together to form a new people. Now, as they're coming from different backgrounds, right? Irish, Scottish initially, and then later on you start having Italians. Well, even before that, you have the enslaved Africans. And the enslaved Africans, even them, they're not a monolithic group, right? They're each bringing little particular elements, right, into the greater American project. So it's in that sense that I'm saying that, well, in that sense, no one can really claim to be the founder or creator of American culture, per se. And I'm saying same thing for hip hop. Yes, predominantly, I'll agree that you'll say, well, the people who were participating initially in this movement before we started calling it a culture, because these people in the hoods of the New York, they weren't talking culture. They were just living, right? The notion of culture, it's after, right? And I would argue that it's, again, when corporate America got involved. This is when people within and externally of the movement started feeling the necessity now to start labeling things, right? To organize things, right? But initially, these people were just living. They were Americans, okay, who were expressing American frustration, howbeit a particular, contextualized American frustration, but American nonetheless. So I hope that, like I said, that they were saying the game from this. You'll be seeing more of me, what I'm saying, in the new year, God willing. Stay tuned. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think about what I've been talking about. And we'll see you soon. Happy New Year.